if it fits your macros. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately. So, for those of you who don't know what if it fits your macros is, it was the kind of big revolution in the online fitness world where anything goes. And it started off with people asking on bodybuilding forums and things, is cheese okay? Is milk okay? Can I eat X, Y, Z? Because they were stuck in this clean eating mindset. And somebody started responding saying, hey, if it fits your macros, you can go for it. Now, the problem is, as always, things tend to swing between extremes very wildly. So what ended up happening is this became if it fits your mouth. Now, this is a very easy slippery slope when suddenly you go from having to restrict your diet to only chicken and broccoli and asparagus and that kind of thing, to suddenly, oh, the world is your oyster, you can eat Pop-Tarts and cake and whatever. Then very quickly you can just eat exclusively that stuff. Now, it was good in many ways. The advantages were that people were liberated from the kind of 80s bodybuilder style eating every 2 hours to stoke the metabolism, and they could eat the foods that they enjoyed. Unfortunately though, if you only eat this stuff that you can see in this picture, then you're not going to feel very full from the foods that you eat. You're going to risk not getting the vitamins and minerals that you would from a standard bodybuilding diet, and also your dental health isn't going to be very good either. But the big problem with all of this is the binary thinking, the big mental cost that this acts as a burden on you. So the binary thinking, first of all, is that as long as I hit my protein, carbs and fat targets, then everything else is fine. And you very quickly can stumble into eating poor food quality and not actually doing so well on your diet because you're feeling hungry all the time because you're eating things that aren't really focused on long-term diet success. The other thing is the mental cost, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Now, to give you an analogy of why this is a big mental cost, and I'll explain what it's officially called, but imagine you go to a party and you have to actively micromanage every micro interaction with somebody. So you go over and you think, okay, I've got to flex my arm and hold my hand out and shake hands with them and make eye contact with them, but not for too long, because then I'll be seen as creepy, and then I need to look away, and then, I need to say hi to this guy. And if you were managing all of these little micro decisions in your head, you would be exhausted by the end of the party. Instead, what happens is you have a bunch of frameworks that you follow, you're used to speaking to people, and so it just kind of flows. Or normally it does, unless you're in a bit of a weird mood like me and you've not left the room for a long time and you're in the work hole. But normally you get into a bit of a flow, and having frameworks in place, the expectations of social interactions, makes things a little bit more easy to follow rather than having to come up with everything from scratch. This is called decision fatigue, and it's a real thing that's been studied extensively. What happens is, if you have to make a number of decisions over the day, over time, that muscle fatigues like everything else, and the result is you have worsened self-control, you become more impulsive, and with regard to food, you become more focused on food. If you're having to, every day, just decide what you're going to eat and how you're going to fit it into your macros each time. So this is a few of the results that happens. And people become worse with their negotiating skills, they're more prone to impulse buying, they have worse willpower, and eventually they just take a decision to avoid making decisions altogether, and usually that decision is the worst one. This means that we're open to being preyed upon by the food industry or by flashing bells and whistles and things like that are going to cause us to derail ourselves from our diet or from doing what we need to do. Another example of decision fatigue that you'll be very acquainted with is the Facebook news feed. Towards the end of the day, you'll open a new tab, and it's so easy to get sucked into just scrolling the news feed or whatever because you're exhausted, and it's made the decision for you. It shows you what you can look at and what you should be clicking on and so on, and you just go with it. And you see the big flashing red notification. It's easy to just go with it. Now, willpower is a finite resource. It's something that if we use it up too quickly in the day, then the rest of the day we're just going to be a bit of a sausage. So yeah, a couple of examples were in court, for example. They found that the same trial run early in the morning or late in the afternoon, so 4 p.m, was ruled guilty by the judge and by the jury much more frequently than they would be in the morning. And that's pretty unfair on the defendants, but the fact is, towards the end of the day, there's not as much desire to look through the evidence more meticulously, and there's evidence as well of medical error going on more and more later on in a shift when a number of decisions have been made already and they just want to get the patient out the door. So it's a real thing. And it's another reason why we have sweets next to the cash register when you go into the shops. You've done all the decision making for the day in the supermarket, you get to the final stage and the sweets are there. And they know that your decision fatigue is highest then, and you'll just go for the sweets because it's the easy option, and your impulsivity is higher and your ability to resist things is lower. How does this tie into the if it fits your macros or flexible dieting? Well, it ties in because of mental RAM and this tendency to binge. Now imagine if you told a child to just do if it fits your macros, how do you think they would respond? What kind of foods do you think they would eventually land at? I think it would look very similar to this stuff. And that's because children are more impulsive and have less willpower and also less metacognizance of what's going on in their heads, what are the mental processes, and what's good for them. Now, we become more and more like children as we go throughout the end of the day, and that's when we need to be careful. So if it fits your macros, I'm not slating it. Obviously, we say it's generally a good approach to follow as long as you make sure you're covering your nutritional bases. But as you get later on into a diet and hunger becomes higher, you're at much more of a risk of binging and falling down the slippery slope. So instead, what we want to do is forego some of that flexibility in favour of gaining some mental RAM, some mental space. And the benefits of that, first of all, you're more likely to move towards your goal because you've freed up mental space, you've given yourself more willpower to hit your targets, to hit your average weekly calories and move towards your goal. So you're less likely to be frustrated with your diet, and it's a small price to pay if you've got a couple of meals that are prepped or restricted your choice a little bit to achieve that. The other big benefit, though, in your general life is this freed up mental RAM. Now, what was the author called? Something Foxglove. She wrote a book about charisma and boiled it down to 3 main characteristics: presence, power, and warmth. All 3 of these are achieved from having more mental space. And obviously, cultivating that through meditation and through being more engaged with whatever you're doing are very helpful. But if you've got a big section of your mind that's focused around food, or you're fatigued throughout the day, that's going to be harder and harder to achieve presence, power, and warmth. So instantly, freeing up some mental RAM offers some chance for you to be more charismatic. There is also the cognitive reserve. You then free up your brain power, to do more important things for the day. And most people don't want to be spending the majority of their brain power focusing on what they're trying to eat. They're more likely to want to do that on creative work or something like that. So you freed up some of that, and then also your willpower for the rest of the day. So how do we achieve this? First of all, staying stupid. This is something that we covered in one of the other modules about the secret to stress-free success. Jonny talks about this as well, where we often get in our own way by micromanaging and self-adjusting our own decisions. And this is why coaches need coaches as well, because sometimes it's not a knowledge problem, it's an accountability and an objectivity problem. And we often become Freddy the Fiddler. We fiddle too much with the decisions that we've made, and we always want to tweak and adjust before we've really given whatever we've done a chance to play itself out. For example, we set ourselves some macros. If we don't have a coach, we follow them for a week and we think, oh, my weight's not dropping fast enough, or oh, maybe they're too high, or maybe they're too low, and you start fiddling. And all that happens is each time you fiddle, you've reset the clock again, and you really don't know whether any of those decisions had an effect on you or not because you fiddled too early. So what we want to do is be able to give all of this less mental space, just follow the program and let things move in the way that they do. And actually, if you give food less mental space, then there's less desire for a flexible approach with food. I'm going to cover a way to achieve the best of both worlds as well. So I'm not actually saying that we need to just suddenly regress to 1980s and just fill up with Tupperware of chicken and broccoli once again. Now, let's look at the model of the most successful clients that we have in Propane Fitness. These are the people that I like to call the algorithms. They're like the terminators of the fitness world. And these are the people that just make solidly consistent results with no drama every time. Now, there is a very common characteristic amongst them all, and that is pure execution. Motivation tends to be irrelevant with these people. They just have a process, they have a system, and they do it regardless of how they feel. And there was a book called The Confidence Gap where he talks about a similar concept, saying that confidence doesn't come from feeling confident and then doing something, that the action precedes the feeling. And actually, if you're feeling anxious about doing something, if you just do it, the confidence will then follow, which is kind of paradoxical to how we're normally used to thinking of things. When the word diet is mentioned, almost instantly, most people crave all of the naughty foods that they shouldn't have. You can ignore the fact that you're on a deficit and try to get on with life without thinking about it. That can go a long way in helping you stay on track. Unless anybody asks you directly, nobody needs to know that you're in a deficit. You can still be social and eat with family or friends. When those situations do arise, it's time to suck it up and realize that dieting sucks sometimes, and we can't get around that. And that's actually a quote from one of our clients in one of his testimonials, and it betrays this idea that you don't need to want to do it all the time, and it's not about being motivated to do it. It's just that as soon as you recognize that dieting sucks and that there's going to be a baseline level of discomfort, that's the most liberating thing that we can have in getting leaner. What they do is they are focused on the process rather than the results. And if they can fall in love with the process and actually hitting their targets each day, then the results take care of themselves. Again, the opposite also holds true for those who don't make results. These are the ones who are so focused on the outcome and they are expecting it to be an easy ride the whole time, and they're not focused on execution. And those are the ones who are the opposite of the algorithms, and they're the ones who are consistently spinning their wheels. So there's a lot to be a lot to be learned from these guys. And we as coaches are always learning just as much from you guys, from clients, as you do from us. The next thing we need to do is close the open loops. These are the questions that are going around in our head of what should I eat today, or what should I have in my next meal, what should I buy in the shops, is it Fred's birthday today, oh I should get round to fixing that meter, oh I need to read that article at some point, or I need to listen to that show. These are all things that we've told ourselves we should do and we haven't taken any action towards them. And so what they do is they start spinning as a little loop in our head. And just like a computer or a mobile phone or something, when you open an app, it's running in the background and it takes up a little bit of space each time. It may not be catastrophic, but over time, all of the aggregate of these little ones builds up to slow down the whole system. Now, this is an idea that we got from David Allen, who wrote a book called Getting Things Done. I would highly recommend, if this is resonating with you already, check out the book, because he has got a very comprehensive system for capturing these open loops, putting them into a system, into a process, and getting things done. And it's a productivity-focused book. So what systems do we recommend for diet? Well, the first thing is obviously meal prep. Now, I know this is a picture of quite boring-looking meals here, but we have an article called, in fact, that's the wrong link. It's just propanefitness.com/meal prep. That's an article from Joe going over some much more delicious recipes than this one in the picture. And being able to do that just on a Sunday afternoon or something, getting all the meals sorted for the week is hugely valuable, because again, you're not having to make the decisions when you wake up and go through it. And if you want variety, you can cook 2 or 3 big pots of different meals and then mix them up in the Tupperwares, for example. I can't recommend meal prep enough. It's not something that I do personally enough. Right now I'm in an off season and I don't really have the same desire for food, but definitely during a diet it's something that I get very on top of, and it makes things so much more seamless and so much more easy. Slow cooker. If you have a rice cooker as well, they fulfill the same purpose. Again, minimizes the amount of mental space that you're spending on food. You can just put it all into the slow cooker, set it for a timer, or even set it on a delay so that you go to work, you've already got the food in the slow cooker, and you can set it to start, say, in 4 hours' time, so that after another 4 hours, it's cooked and ready by the time you get home. Microwave bags, these are another one that I use loads now. I just bought 200 recently. They're BPA free, so they don't have that estrogenic side effect, and they steam food that's inside, so you can put in vegetables and chicken or whatever, seal it up, put it in a bowl, and it just circulates the air, cooks it in about 3 or 4 minutes, even from frozen. The advantage of that is time. You're spending less than 10 seconds preparing a meal, and it just means that all you have to do is you go into the kitchen, you put the stuff in the bag, turn it on the microwave, and you're done. And there's much less thinking about it, and before you know it, the meal's over. You're not spending your life fantasizing about food, or even spending many hours of the day focused around food to open up mental RAM for the more important things in life. So if you're interested in more little tips like that, there's an article called Automate Your Diet for £7 a day. It goes into how to leverage the online grocery ordering process to your advantage, and splitting your food into perishables and non-perishables, and how to bring the cost down as low as possible, buying stuff in bulk, setting an automated weekly shop, for example, for the non-perishable foods, so milk and meat and eggs and things, and gives you a process that you can link in with your meal prep to just minimize all of these decisions. And this is really how to get the most out of eating what you want. We know that the If It Fits Your Macros or flexible dieting revolution has shown us that we can eat the types of foods that we want, but this gives it an extra bit of structure that helps us be more successful with our diets. So another system is the weekly reports. This is with your coach, and this is about the mental handover, where you take the week, you consolidate it, you hand it over to your coach, and you don't worry about it. And this is covered in more detail as well on the secret to stress-free success. So that's part of our Fat Loss Mastery or Strength Mastery courses. Alternatively, it's one of the free gifts in propanefitness.com/gift. So that's our podcast gift, and you can access that module for free in there. Right, so those are the systems for being able to get the best of both worlds with flexible dieting and structured meal planning. So have a think so far. What's been the most helpful thing so far? Do you have any questions? The solution to all of this is the 2-1 day planning method. And this is one of the ideas covered in our free ebook. Now, this is where, let's say you're having 3 meals a day. You have 2 meals for function and 1 meal for fun. Usually the third meal of the day, the last meal, is the one for fun, because that's when you're with family or your spouse or whatever, and you're able to be a bit more flexible, or you want to be a bit more flexible. So the first 2 meals, the ones for function, are where you're covering your nutritional bases. So you're hitting most of your calorie intake and most of your protein intake in those meals. So let's say 40% on each. Or you could reduce it if you want a bigger evening meal. So say 20-20 or 30-30%. Hitting most of your protein intake by that point. Making sure that you're getting your fiber and your fluid intakes and your micronutrients. And then the third meal, you can just play Tetris and fill up the remainder of your calories for that day. And that way, you've got the first part of the day that's structured, and the third part of the day, or the rest of the day, is more flexible and more relaxed. And then you can kind of YOLO the evening meal. Okay, so those are the systems, and that's the way really to reconcile both of these worlds of rigid eating and If It Fits Your Macros. And hopefully we've convinced you that straight up If It Fits Your Macros, cramming Pop-Tarts into your face and becoming If It Fits Your Mouth is not a successful or sustainable way to approach your diet, because of the disadvantages and the reasons that I've explained here, particularly decision fatigue. So does that all make sense? This got me thinking when I was coming up with these systems that there are several more that you can use outside of the diet world. I'm going to cover a few of them, and if there is more interest, I'm going to do a more comprehensive module on this stuff. But one of them, for example, is Toby. This is a tab manager for Google Chrome, where when you open a new tab, you can set defined, in fact I'll get a screenshot of it because that will be a little bit more useful. Pete says, yes, that makes sense, excellent. Yeah, so here is an example of Toby. There we are. So you would open a new tab and you have a series of things here like check every day, to-dos, stuff to read, etc. And you can just drag new tabs into there. That way, when you are starting a fresh session or something, you no longer have to think about what you're doing. It's already in there for you. You've got a queue of stuff to do. This has been hugely helpful for me because I've got a reading queue and a watching queue. And let's say I'm occupied, I'm eating something or whatever, I can just go into the watching queue and that'll be like a series of lectures or whatever I want to see in bulk, and it's already set for me. There's also a plugin you can use that keeps the place in a video that you were watching. So if you're watching 2-hour lectures, it'll jump straight to that point. And it works with YouTube and other video servers. So that way you've minimized that friction, that decision fatigue. iCal or Google Calendar, another fantastically useful one, and with these you can set recurring reminders. So when I was saying like, oh, is it Fred's birthday? Every time it's a friend's birthday, put it into iCal, set it as a recurring reminder every year. And I would recommend that you do this manually rather than rely on Facebook, because Facebook you've usually got, say, a few hundred friends, most of which you wouldn't want to wish a happy birthday to, and you might miss the wood for the trees there. So iCal and setting out time boxes. This is another, I think it's a David Allen idea, or it's a spin-off of that, where let's say you have a task that you need to do in the day. You would set it so that it's between 11 and 12 p.m, for example, and when it begins, that's all you're doing for that day. And when you hit 12 o'clock, you stop the task, regardless of whether you've completed it or not. What that does is it squashes the demands into that time, so it forces you to operate according to Parkinson's law, the idea that a task will expand to fit the time that's been allocated to it. Doing that will make you more productive and also give you a defined endpoint and make you more stress-free. You can also then set breaks within the calendar, and the more laid out your calendar is throughout the day, actually the more freedom that it gives you, even though it sounds like it's a more structured way to live your life. Because rather than just kind of pissing into the day and not really having a structure to anything, and one task kind of bleeds into another, you've got defined start and end points, and it's so liberating. The next thing, this is Tim Ferriss on dating, and this was a fascinating video where he outsourced his dating life. He minimized the friction and the decision fatigue with doing this, and the way he did this was he hired 3 teams of virtual assistants in Philippines, Pakistan, and Singapore, I think. And he got them all to set up, so he set up a Match.com profile, looked at the statistics and found that the picture that converts the most is someone who is topless or holding a small animal, smiling, or looking slightly to the left. So he made a picture doing all of those things. So it was like him topless, holding a small dog, looking to the left and smiling. He then got these teams of virtual assistants to message people and say, hello, I am writing on behalf of Mr. Timothy Ferriss. You match the criteria for his desires. Would you be willing to go for a date with him? And he gave them a financial bonus for organising the most dates. And he organised, I think, 100 dates over 5 days, or like a large amount of them, 20 minutes each from 9 till 5 every day across 6 coffee shops. And he rotated across the coffee shops so that there was no awkward moment where one was coming in and the other was going out. Did that for a week, had a bunch of rapid fire dates that he didn't have to have any decision in the part of organising. And he found a girlfriend by the end of it, and it was sorted. So that's the Tim Ferriss approach to outsourcing dates. Cynthia says, "Oh my god, yeah, it's a little bit callous, but great application of outsourcing." Evernote as well. This is basically like an external brain. You can the way you can organize it is kind of admin documents, scanned things, summaries of books, recipes, notes for academic or work or whatever. And just again, if it's all indexed, you're minimizing friction. Mail Butler. This is an app that plugs into your Apple Mail and allows you to schedule emails in advance or give you follow-up reminders. It also reminds you if you write the word attachment and you don't attach something, you don't look like an absolute dingbat in the process. So it'll be like, whoa, don't send that yet. You haven't attached a file, and that's saved me multiple times. So again, that just, rather than you having to think back, oh, I haven't heard back from that guy yet, or it just takes care of it for you. Splitwise, this is something that I use in my own flat, and it allows you to log the bills and decide who owes who what. As you can see, I'm currently in the lead. I'm obviously a delight to live with, considering how obsessional I am with this stuff. But this allows you to log this stuff without having to think like, oh, hang on, did you buy the last one? Or oh, but I got those laundry tablets. Like, it just takes care of it for you. And being able to outsource these kind of things that don't need to be done by your brain, they can be done by machines, so that you can actually focus on your creative genius and spending time with your family and loved ones. Pete says, I use OneNote instead of Evernote. Looked at migrating at one point, but surprisingly it's a pain. Yeah, I think some people find OneNote pretty good as well. I've not used it massively, but yeah, it's Alternote, SimpleNote, and Bear are also good alternatives, so I'll write those down here. Alternote, SimpleNote, Bear, and also Apple Notes is now pretty well featured at this point. I'm sure there's several others, but Bear is kind of my favourite, and if I hadn't started on Evernote, I probably would use it. It's got some shortcomings. Evernote's much more powerful for like attachments and PDFs and things. But yeah. Virtual Assistant. So the way that I use a virtual assistant, for example, is I give them onboarding documents through Evernote, a shared document through there, give them a LastPass account. That gives them access to all of my passwords for accounts, and then I'll give them tasks through Wunderlist, and that syncs. And that means that you just write a task into something, and then you find out when it's been done. You get the time tracking through Toggle, without the E, because it's one of these fashionable new startups. And then the whole thing is out of your head and you're not having to chase them up for anything. You can see where they're at a certain time. And then the final two things, these are pretty new for me, and I realise we're going completely off-piste from if it fits your macros at this point, but these are just big, these are revolutionary for me. So the play queue I mentioned, this is a series of tabs that I've set up in Toby on Chrome. You can create your own play queue in any other way, but what this does is gives you a chance to, if there's a bunch of things that you wanted to see or wanted to watch, you can align them in order of priority. Same with reading. I've got two folders, first priority and second priority, and they get dragged to the top as per whatever is the most important thing to read at that point. Then as you're reading through, highlight through Preview or through a similar application. You can then bulk export those highlights into an Evernote, and then you can create your summary around that because you've already created some checkpoints, and that way you can index book summaries, and there we go. So those are a quick run through of some systems that I use. If there is any more interest, I can certainly do another video on that, but as I say, it's just because I got excited looking about these diet systems too. So that is it for today. That's the downside of if it fits your macros. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I will speak to you. Yusef and Jonny from Propane Fitness, and I just want to take the time to show you something that people don't often know about, which is the huge repository, the members area of Fat Loss Mastery and Strength Mastery. So these are our mastery programs, and it contains all of our best information on diet and training, giving you everything that you need to just accelerate your progress and take you out of fumbling around in the dark. So let's just take a look through the members area itself.
So these are both available online using the link below what we're talking about for only $19.97 a month. And we obviously think that's a massive steal, and I'll explain why just quickly by showing you inside. So as you can see, each of these red boxes on the left-hand side, that represents a module in most cases. Sometimes it represents a series of frequently asked questions that we get asked from guys like yourself who come into this program and have a question about something specific. It might be, oh, well, I want to know more about when I adjust my macros and calories to improve my fat loss or prevent any plateaus. It might be, well, what are the pros and cons of lifting with a belt and how tight should I have it? So they're really comprehensive. We covered so much in there, and they're being added to every single week. But what does a module look like? Well, so each one isn't just 10 seconds of content. Like, these are huge bodies of information that we piece together that you get to work through on a weekly basis. So each week, one of us will be introducing the module. So it's like a virtual coaching experience. We talk you through the details of what we'll be discussing that week. So as you can see here, we have a 35-minute video for you to go through and digest in your own time, MP3 versions if you need to listen to it on the go, and then guides on your training program. We give you downloads, and there's extra stuff, bonuses, challenges, tasks, things to complete at the end of every week. Our goal with this product and our goal with the members areas is to automate this stuff for you. So you maybe feel like you want to learn more about alcohol or caring for your mind or caring for your body, your tissue, your mobility. We've taken these pieces and we've broken out the big rocks, the big themes in them, and made this into an actionable, simple, stepwise framework. So it's just all taken care of for you. In addition to that, we give you a new training program every 4 weeks or every single month. And so you no longer have this nagging feeling of like, well, what am I going to do with my training next time?
So there's a huge number of bonuses to get into as well. As Jonny said, we unpack some of the big topics that you guys have asked us to do, things like mindset, sleep, habit development, and there's over 100 FAQs across training, supplements, diet, injury prevention, and all of that stuff, including every single digital product that we've ever made. So you'll get instant access to any of the ebooks relating to fat loss or muscle gain, big guides on hypertrophy, cheat sheets, PDF downloads, and we'll keep you accountable with that. You'll have access to a Facebook group where you can get in touch with other members and keep each other accountable with your progress.
And we're adding to this every single week at the moment. So as you can see here down the left, as we move into the latter modules, and these are drip fed on a weekly basis, we move into some more specific things. Like recently, Yusef did a drop-in clinic on specifically back pain, the mind-muscle connection, and weight stalling. And even just in that module, which isn't necessarily following a presentation style framework, you can ask questions that get fed into these. And even in that style of framework and discussion, there's tons to learn, tons to unpack from it. So we're really quite selective over what we upload into this. And it is basically a curriculum, a course, and a way to automate your diet, your training, your nutrition. We like to think that basically you'll never need to go anywhere else for your learning, for your training, for your nutrition management ever again.
You can go into as much detail as you want to as well. We give you the minimum to get started, and then if you want to dive in further, there's always the extra resource for that too.
So that's it. That's a look inside Fat Loss Mastery. If you would like to join one of these mastery programs, if your goal is fat loss, then Fat Loss Mastery is the choice for you. If your goal is strength mastery, that's the choice for you. We will actually give you access to both, but it's about selecting which one that you want to go for first. $19.97 a month or a single payment of $197 for lifetime access. So if you want our opinion, our take on these topics, if you like what we talk about, you like our content, and you want to learn about any of these things, this is the most affordable, quickest and easiest way to start, and you get access to this for you to use as much or as little as you want. So if you want to get started, click the link below or go to propanefitness.com/mastery, follow the details, and we'll see you on the other side.